Hey everyone, I'm Maya Fiacco. Nice to meet you guys. I did the P.G.T. Beauregard statue. So, who exactly was this guy? Who was Mr. Beauregard? So, P.G.T. Beauregard, his full name being Pierre Gustave Toutant, he was a Confederate general and engineer. He was born in 1818 in Louisiana and died in 1893. So, pushing 80, about 70, 75 years old. Good, a nice long life. So what exactly did he do? Like, why did he get this monument? Why did he get the statue? So he was an engineer on Winfield Scott on his staff during the Mexican-American War. So he was down in the Southwest in Mexico, Texas, Utah, all this stuff. He was down there working. Then he continued his work in Louisiana, his home state. Then he was made a brigadier general for the Confederacy in Charleston, South Carolina, and he ordered the firing on Fort Sumter. He was also second in command to J.E. Johnston at the First Battle of Bull Run, and he was promoted to general there. What's interesting, though, is that he had a falling out with Jefferson Davis and was removed from command. So he wasn't a general anymore. After the war, he was a railroad president, managed the state lottery for Louisiana, and was made adjunct general for Louisiana. Like, adjunct general, that's for like the state militia. Like state militia, all that stuff. But what's funny, again, is that his engineering skills overshadowed his work as general. So I guess he was a better engineer than he was a general. So how exactly was his monument created? When he died, there was a collection going around by these different groups to build a monument for him in New Orleans. It was unveiled in 1915, which is kind of late when you think about when this movement was started during the Reconstruction period. You have World War One going on at this point, and we're unveiling a Confederate statue from the Civil War. All right. Um, Fun fact: it was made by the same sculptor who made the Robert E. Lee statue. That's also in New Orleans. So why exactly was it removed? The mayor at the time wanted to remove it, but there were other events that got in the way. The other events being the massacre of 9 black parishioners in South Carolina. Those images of that massacre got posted online, and the journalist who found the shooter, he was a white supremacist. They found his blog that had the Confederate flag images, and with the Confederate flag that was for the Beauregard statue. And the black citizens in New Orleans felt so unsafe, and like it didn't feel right for them to have all these images going around with these monuments, images of like Robert E. Lee, all its Confederate monuments. It did not feel right for them. So after 2 weeks of that massacre happening, the mayor wanted the statue dismantled. He wanted it removed. Um, so even though that the mayor asked for it, he wanted the removal, there were already activists working since the 70s to remove it, like Avery Alexander and Marie Galatas. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Um, they've been wanting to remove it since the 70s. So, you had, uh, this is already past Reconstruction. This is past the civil rights movement. This is the 70s. You know, we already had all these laws being passed to remove this stuff, and it wasn't removed until 2017. The mayor wanted it removed in 2015. But in the past, monuments like this weren't noticed as much. People didn't really see them as a problem until massacres like the one in South Carolina happened. People weren't really paying attention. So, how is this part of the Lost Cause movement? What really is it anyway? So it was a way to rewrite history in Southern America by white Southerners, and they were groups that made these monuments. Um, the most important being the United Daughters of the Confederacy. They were the ones that had a lot of funds to really push it and to really make all these things. Um, there were also larger ones at the time, like the United Confederate Veterans and the Sons of Confederate Veterans. They were they were smaller compared to the United Daughters, but they were still very prominent. So how did this really even start? This started because of women's writings during the war. So they were writing letters, they were writing novels, they were writing all this stuff to show like what's going on, like what's happening during the war, how they viewed it. Um and because of those writings, people decided to make monuments of Confederate generals and soldiers and prominent people. But what they really wanted to do was to assert white supremacy in areas that had Jim Crow laws by putting these monuments there. All they wanted to do was put monuments there and be like, yeah, white supremacy is still a thing. We're still here and we're still going to get you, which is kind of a threat. So, why is a statue a lost cause? So, after the Civil War, during the Reconstruction period, a bunch of these statues were being made, like Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, just some of those examples that are also in New Orleans. This was one of the Beauregard statue was one of the statues being made after Reconstruction. It was a way to memorialize the social norms before and during the war. So the white Southerners at the time wanted to also, again, show that they were still here, show that, hey, I want to keep things the way they were because it benefited me, which I don't really agree with. It was a way also to get more members in the groups, like the United Daughters, the United Confederate Veterans, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, to join in and help make more of these monuments to help spread this ideology. Not really ideology, but this way of thinking. And here's my works cited page. And my picture sources. All right. Thank you guys.